The results of editing in Levitation are pretty cool, but in reality, they start off as a series of simple photographs. This video is designed to help my photography students, but anybody can try it. I'm going to cover some Levitation basics, but the bulk of this video is at the end, and it's 10 minutes of help with editing, because that's the most difficult part. Your first choice is, what are you going to photograph? Maybe you have some willing family members, or some pets. They work well with treats. Sometimes you get some funny pictures in the process. Objects are really good. And if all else fails, you can do some self-portrait work with timer. Your background choice is also important. When your background is continuous from foreground to background, it doesn't quite have the same wow factor. This one was quite difficult. It was actually 2 feet of water underneath me. And make sure you have a good angle. Even though they might be up high, if you're not at a low angle, it doesn't really look that impressive. You're only limited by your imagination. Sometimes when you set up a picture, you need a story that goes with it. Is the cat just floating for no reason? Add something that makes it more interesting. I thought it would be fun if I could reach the top shelf on my own. Or have the cat ride around the house. You need to have something to hold your subject. Someone can hold it, and then you can erase the person. You can use a ladder, or stools that are sturdy. Make sure they're safe. Tripods are useful for holding your camera, but really you can use anything you have around the house. I like to edit with GIMP, which is a free program you can download on your computer, and PixArt, which is an app for your phone. The most important thing is you need 2 photos. 1 of your subject levitating on a stool or whatever you're choosing, and 2 just the background. You need this picture and this one in order to edit into this final image. Search up ways online to do this without using editing. My suggestions are fishing line, but that sometimes doesn't get hidden very well, and you still may have to edit it out. No cats were injured in the making of this video. Or get your subject to jump. Here's 2 ways you can share your photos with me, and stay tuned afterwards for 10 minutes of editing help. Okay, so I'm just going to share with you some tips on GIMP, how to open your files. So I did this already and it exceeded the 5 minutes that I had. So I'm going to try to maybe do this in 2 different videos. So you're going to open the pictures you want, the picture of your subject and the picture of the background. Remember, you have to include the 2 pictures, otherwise you can't do this. And I name all my pictures so I can find them easily. So I'm going to show you number 2 and with a background. So you have to hold the control button down to pick 2. I'm going to move this out of the way. Can I move? And hit open. So you have 2 layers in one, which is what you want, and they're not in the right order. So you actually want the plain background layer with nothing in it, the subject or the stool on the bottom. So I'm just going to drag this and drop it underneath. So that's how you set it up. And then you want to make it look like the cat is levitating. So the easy way to do it is to go to your eraser tool and to erase it so you can see the background. No, I just need to be on the top layer. Make sure you're on the layer that you want to work on, otherwise it's not going to work. So I'm on the top layer. I want to erase it. Now I wanted to show you this because this is what I was doing, and obviously it's not correct, but I didn't know how to fix it. So the one really nice thing I like about GIMP is that any problems you have, you pretty much can find a video that explains how to fix it or how to do what you want to do on YouTube. So I searched it up. I'm just going to go edit, undo. So if you want to do it this way, you actually need to go to your top layer, right click on it, hit add alpha channel. This makes it so that when you erase with your eraser tool, it actually will show the layer underneath. So it's like the object disappears. Now, lots of people will say, oh, can you just erase that from the background or just erase this from part of the picture? But you can't just erase something from a picture unless you replace it with something. If it's grass, you could replace it with nearby grass. So what we do is we use the picture that's underneath. If you look, this is the picture underneath. That's really what would be there if you could see through the object. So it's kind of like we're erasing it. So that's one way that you can do it. So I'm going to pause the video here. I apologize for all the ums I said in the last video. You don't realize how much you say it until you have to listen to yourself. This one, I'm going to show you my favorite method, and that is to use a mask. So the top layer is the, cat, and the bottom layer is the plain background. You set it up the same way, but this time, instead of just erasing, I'm going to use a mask. To add that, you need to be on the top layer, which I am. Go to layer, add a mask, add layer mask. There's different ones you can use. 99% of the time, I use the option they chose. Now, you have to remember, I know you don't know what a mask is, but you'll know in a second. This white square is the mask. This is your picture. Depending on if you're on the mask or the picture, it does very different things. The idea of the mask is if you color black on the mask, whatever you're coloring over disappears. You can see the layer behind. And if you color white, it reappears. Obviously, if you take your black marker or paintbrush and you paint over something on your picture, it paints black. So if that's happening, it's because you're not on the mask, you're on the picture. So I'm going to edit, undo. So if I'm on the mask and I have my black paintbrush and I color over something, it's like I erase it. I like this over the plain eraser tool because, oops, if I make a mistake, it's totally reversible. So if I go and change the color to white, I can color over it and it reappears. And this is all, you can do this over and over again. You can do it as many times as you want. This helps when you're zooming in and you're getting the fine details. If you're coloring black, you're on the mask, you can see it's pretty big here. Oh, I'm on white still. So if I go to black, it disappears. Go back to white, it reappears. If I want to get closer and do some fine tuning, go back to my black paintbrush again, but this time I can play with the size. So I might go this big so that I can erase. And if I wanted to bring the landing gear back, I'm not sure exactly where they are, but let's say they're around here. It could bring them back. And then I'd have to do some finer detail work around them. So that's the mask. It's fairly easy to use. One thing I did want to show you is when you are erasing with the mask, when you are there, the cat's there, the stool's there, and then when you take it away, there are likely to be differences in shadows and lighting. So how I fix that is if I'm on the mask and go to my black paintbrush, just make it a bit bigger. Sometimes I erase areas I don't need to. For example, I might find some natural lines to stop erasing. So I might erase this part, sort of stop where the walls are, so that my lighting looks more consistent. So I may erase this whole area. Just, you definitely want to get rid of the shadows of the stool because it's not supposed to be there. So I could go to here. If I wanted him out of the picture, I might start here, and then I'm going to see the other picture of the background. So I wanted to show you what happens when it comes time to save it. You should be saving along the way if you don't trust your computer to stop. And this is a free program, so there are some glitches every once in a while. You should be saving your progress. So when you're working on it, you're going to go save as. It's going to automatically save the file as a GIMP file. You want to give it a name and you can save it. But when you're done and everything is okay, you want to save it in a different way. I'm going to go File. I may want to crop it, so you can crop it before you save it. I'm going to go File, and you can only save it as a JPEG if you go to the Export As. So I'm going to go to Export As. I'm going to give it a name. Make sure you give it a new name because you don't want to save over your original files in case you need them. So give it a new name. So let's just, sometimes I just put like a B after it so it's the same file name for the second one. Move this. And then I hit export. Now I'll just warn you, it does ask you twice. So you're not done after you hit that first button. You have to hit export again. And then it's saved. So just want to reiterate the difference between the GIMP file and the JPEG. In the GIMP file, if you needed to open it up again, you would see all the layers, you would see your mask, you could change things. But when you save it as a JPEG file as your final step, it's a flat image and you can't manipulate it. So it's really good to save it as a GIMP file as you're going on, and then your final step, you can save it as a JPEG.